answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Overnight, the U.S. and Iran trading attacks. President Trump posting an image to Truth Social with no description of what appears to be a U.S. strike in the city of Isfahan. Video circulating online showing the massive explosion lighting up the night sky. The Wall Street Journal reporting the Iranian military installation was struck with 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs. And this is the oil tanker hit by an Iranian drone strike Monday, fire breaking out on the vessel docked in a UAE port. A reminder the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. Iran also sending a wave of missiles over Israel a day after this strike on this oil refinery in the country's north. A fireball erupting from the site, and now with the prolonged war hitting the global economy, pressure is mounting on the Trump administration as American service members become targets. These new images show a U.S. radar jet destroyed by an Iranian attack. Pieces of that U.S. Air Force E-3 Sentry scattered among debris at the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. That attack injuring 15 American soldiers, with 5 in serious condition.
Now, that is an update on what we had yesterday regarding the hitting of that AWAC in Saudi Arabia. And that U.S. plane came from Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma. And we don't know the identities of the troops that might have been injured in that blast. We were not told immediately yesterday that there were serious injuries, but that is apparently the latest. And here are some of the other things that have been going on today. And I'm glad to see Trump do this. Make sure you fully understand what we're doing here. We've got U.S. forces already in the region throughout the Middle East anyway. They are targets for Iran and their ballistic missiles, drones, and everything else. And they're using them to hit some of those targets in Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and, of course, yesterday, shooting down a missile that was headed to Turkey. So a lot of our allies in Europe are suddenly saying, well, we're not sure we want to be involved in this. The hell you don't. And Trump has taken that attitude, and I'm glad. Couple quick updates before I get to a crucial issue here. Israeli Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, estimated there could be a long-term solution to the Strait of Hormuz crisis anyway, simply rerouting oil and gas pipelines westward across Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea and Mediterranean. So that would end that Iranian chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz. And in the meantime, the International Atomic Energy Agency director said that Iran's nuclear program has sustained enormous damage. That's what we wanted. But he also adds elements that were not destroyed persist. And that is why we might have troops in the region. I have told you before, and I'll reassert for you so you know that exactly where I stand. I do not want U.S. boots on the ground inside Iran as an invasion force. I don't want them to be activated and sent in to collect some of the enriched uranium buried under rubble. I don't want them exposed to that point. We continue to hit them from air by whatever means possible, and if they continue rebuilding, we hit them again from the air. They're not going to be able to move that stuff out of there without us knowing it. We do not need to go in and take physical possession of it. There's been talk that Trump is considering that option. I say veto. No. The other thing is we've got something like 5,000 Marines in the area now. They could be used to take Karg Island, just 20 miles off the coast of Iran, their major oil exporter location. I have no option with, and rather no problem with that as long as they hit and run and move out. Occupying Karg Island, well, again, I'm not privy to all the inside intel. I don't know how long that would take. Not only Karg Island, but some of the other islands around the area. But again, boots on the ground for that location and possibly U.S. Marine amphibious units, pardon me, hitting the coastline where some of the Iranian missile batteries are and other activity. That I'm willing to accept, but keep in mind, even that acceptance bears a possibility of U.S. casualties. Now, here's a key. President Trump started attacking our European allies today because you're not doing enough to support what we're doing in Iran. So you want oil from Hormuz to come through? Maybe you should do it. He said that these countries are upset by high fuel prices, and I'm quoting from his Truth Social. Go get your own oil from the Strait of Hormuz, saying the U.S. would no longer, quote, be there to help you anymore. See, the U.K. has initially refused to allow U.S. aircraft to use British bases for the strikes. Spain has stepped up and done the same. And now Italy, Meloni, an ally of Trump, we thought, suggesting maybe Italy is not going to be involved. These NATO nations need a reckoning. You're not going to help us at this point? Rubio is going to address that a little bit later as we move forward. But Trump has made it clear. We could leave all these countries. You clean up your own economic quagmire and restore the flow of about 1/5 of the world's oil supply, because we're just perfect doing what we're doing in our nation. We're there to help you. You don't seem to be there to help us. Enough of that. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors, USA. Yes, we're out of the gates like a bull every day, Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. I'm at a point now where I'm getting a little hoarse because I've been yelling and preparing today's program. And you're going to find out why as we move forward. And with Larry Connors, USA, I'll remind you, you're going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. You'll leave this hour with more information than you have right now. And if you cannot stay with us all through the 2 hours, remember you can pull up the podcast. I strongly encourage you to do that at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. And when you listen or even watch our video at a later time, push share, send it on to others. And yes, while we're on the air right now, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. Is Larry going to hit his head on the wall, the ceiling? I might. Believe me, I'm pushed to that limit today. How do you watch? News Talk STL Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, Larry Connors USA, Facebook, or Rumble. All right, let me take a breath, calm down a little bit to tell you what else is coming up later in this next hour. In the next hour, are you using artificial intelligence for your business? If you want to, how would you do it? How could it help you? My guest coming up will tell you. Now, I'm going to admit to you now, the guest is with PRI Global, which is a sponsor of my program. I don't try to hide that from you, but they are experts in artificial intelligence. You'll want to hear that in our next hour. Later in this hour, Josh Hammer with the Horowitz Freedom Center, talking about the swamp that is existing inside the White House right now. And our story behind the story today, my plans to become a Golden Gloves boxing champ when I was only 12 years old. Oh, you're going to like that story. The story behind the story before we complete this hour. Now for an update on what's happening in Iran, 4-star General Jack King.
We're a month into this, and we have some time to go, and things are getting more challenging, and we knew this would happen. What's happening here? The Iranians are trying to deceive us as to where their launchers are. They're moving them around quite readily. They're trying to hide as many of the drones as they possibly can. We know where their ballistic missile storage sites are. We've destroyed most of those, but there's still missiles underneath the ground that we're working at getting to. We've taken down most of their defense industrial base. These are the defense firms in the public or private sector that sustain the military capability of the regime. And what we've been working on for the last several days, Israel and the United States, is their industrial base. In other words, steel mills, other manufacturing capabilities that don't directly have military implications, but also help to sustain their economy. And been gradually taking that down and severely pushing them back on their heels.
Pushing them back. We're attacking everything. Let's talk about hitting a desalination plant Iran uses, providing water for its people. Some are saying, well, that would be a violation of a Water Treaty Powers Act. The effort would obviously cut off water for the people of Iran. We're not saying we're going to directly, but it's a consideration to make Iran bow. The people of Iran want to be free. They want to go back to where they were before they took over our embassy in '79, more westernized. They don't want this. They don't want to continue to fight it on a regular basis. It's the mullahs that are in charge. And, of course, what about that uranium that's already been enriched? What should we do about it? Sean Hannity asked that question of General King.
You mentioned possibly destroying the 60% enriched uranium. Can that be destroyed? Can that be diluted? Or must it be extracted? Obviously, the easy way would be for them to agree to hand it over.
The president has options. I'm going to leave it at that. And he has got plenty of options in front of him what to do with the nuclear enrichment and the other capabilities that they have. In terms of the deal with them, I mean, so our audience understands what we're trying to achieve through diplomacy is what we intend to achieve through military operations. They would have to surrender all of the capability that they have with verification anytime, anywhere inspections. At the end of the day, I believe they're not going to do that because that is who they are.
Yeah.
And they want to ride this thing out as long as they can personally survive it. They're in this to ride it out is my judgment here. We'll see what happens here. But the reality is we can accomplish all of the assigned missions, Sean, that the president has given to the commander of Central Command. And how do I know that? Because I've talked to him time and time again about it. And he's in the region right now talking to the troops today as we speak, and he's very confident about where we are.
And keep in mind, we have history. When Obama was allowing and had this deal with Iran and other countries signing on, then they were promising we will not develop enriched uranium for war purposes, but only for civilian purposes. They lied. And they told the UN, you can come in at any time and inspect anytime, anywhere, unannounced. They lied. That never happened. When UN Energy Atomic inspectors went to Iran, they had to arrive pre-announced. They were kept in one area, and they were given a sheet of paper. Here's what we're doing. This is your report. They lie. And right now, trying to negotiate with Iran, General King, he points out the ones you're dealing with are the last ones you want in Iran.
And the people that are in charge now are hardliners. Make no mistake about it. The guy running the IRGC, Ahmed Vahidi, and the guy running the civilian side, Gabalov, those are hardliners. And they have great difficulty even admitting negotiations are going on, or much less making a concession. Why? Because the rest of the hardliners would likely kill them. That is what has taken place inside the nucleus of Iran and its leadership.
Yeah.
So diplomatic challenge going forward for sure, military challenge as well. My preference is finish it militarily because why? At the end of the day, you have the opportunity to truly weaken the regime, and you're not throwing them a lifeline in terms of sanction relief, billions of dollars for them making concessions to us.
And we can't accept that because we can't trust them. Ronald Reagan said it best. Trust but verify. There is a hard, cold fact that is disturbing. We cannot count on our NATO allies to help. Secretary of War Hegseth.
There are countries around the world who ought to be prepared
to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well. So he's pointing out this is an international waterway that we use less than most, in fact, dramatically less than most. So the world ought to pay attention to be prepared to stand up. President Trump's been willing to do the heavy lifting on behalf of the free world to address this threat of Iran. It's not just our problem set going forward, even though we have done the lion's share of preparation to ensure that that strait will be open, which is an outcome the president's been very clear on. As far as Russia and China, we know exactly what they're doing, what they are or are not doing. We don't have to air publicly what all of that is. But where necessary, we're addressing it, we're mitigating it, or we're confronting it head on.
China and Russia are one thing. Our own allies, that's entirely different. And they all belong to NATO. And Secretary of State Rubio says we might need a reckoning.
Countries like Spain, a NATO member that we are pledged to defend, denying us the use of their airspace and bragging about it. Well, what is in it for the United States? But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in. So all of them's going to have to be re-examined. Straits of Hormuz will be open. It will be open, and it'll be open one way or another.
They will be open one way or the other. Now, again, let me point out what they're doing or not doing. Italy, refusing a flight of American bombers on the way to the Middle East clearance to land at a strategic hub of the Med Air Base, supposedly because Washington had not honored terms of its governing treaty on launching strikes from Italian soil. Prime Minister Meloni is one of President Trump's most friendly allies, saying, well, we're acting in what we should be doing. We got them doing that. We have UK blocking off flights. We have France doing the same thing. And Trump has pointed out on Truth Social, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the U.S. We have plenty of oil. Buy oil and gas from the U.S. Number two, build up some delayed courage. Go to the strait and just take it. You need to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA will not be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. He said the hard part is now done. Go get your own oil. I love that approach. Coming up, Josh Hammer with the David Horowitz Religious Freedom Center, I should say, on the swamp inside the White House. And the story behind the story, when I was going to be a Golden Gloves boxing champ. Right. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington. Finally, March, the season of fresh starts, more daylight, more energy. A perfect time to take a fresh look at your home. Your windows or doors are outdated and efficient? Check with Renewal by Andersen. From your first design consultation through final installation, every detail is handled by one experienced, dedicated team. Clear communication, precise craftsmanship. Renewal by Andersen windows built with our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl. And right now, during our March savings event, take $400 off every window, $800 off every door, and get a free upgrade to Smart Sun Glass. No money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. But this ends March 31st. Call 877-WINDOWS, 877-WINDOWS, or visit rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Superior products, exceptional service. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
Had me, girl, taught me those things a young man should know. Down on my knees and begging, I plead to learn a little bit more. Oh, that woman taught me to pray. I saw heaven every day, and all she could do.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. There's been a recent survey from JL Partners showing that 83% of Republican voters support Epic Fury and what Trump is doing. But my next guest says he's having to battle a war not only over there, but inside his own backyard, inside the White House. Josh Hammer with the David Horowitz Freedom Center, also author of Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and the Destiny of the West. Josh, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, you point out in a piece that you did for Front Page, there is a shadow war against President Trump. Give me a thumbnail sketch.
Sure. So, in my estimation, there's been a shadow war happening for a long time now. It's increasingly obvious, made obvious by things like the Joe Kent resignation, this high-profile resignation of the former director of the National Counterterrorism Center, who then just runs into the arms of the openly subversive fifth column podcaster Tucker Carlson. This happened. It was very similar last year, actually, when a man by the name of Dan Caldwell was fired for leaking from the Pentagon by his one-time former close friend and ally, Pete Hegseth. Caldwell similarly rushed to Tucker Carlson to tell his end of the story. So there's this deeply unholy alliance that is happening within certain elements of the administration, those who are empowered trying to subvert the MAGA President Trump agenda from within, who are allying with ideological allies and common cause folks on the outside. Again, this is led by Tucker Carlson, but it's not limited to him. Unfortunately, a lot of these individuals seem to have ties to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's the Office of the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard. So Joe Kent resigned from Tulsi's office. Dan Caldwell, who I just mentioned, who was fired for leaking last year from the Pentagon, he actually was just rehired. He was just rehired into the government by none other than Tulsi Gabbard. So if I were President Trump and if I were Susie Wiles, his very loyal chief of staff, if I were other kind of arch loyalists, maybe Stephen Miller, people like that there, I would be personally asking a lot of questions of Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not saying that she needs to be fired. I am saying that there's a lot of smoke around here right now, and I think that she has a lot of questions to answer for, frankly.
Well, and you mentioned Tucker Carlson, up until leaving Fox, fired from Fox basically, considered to be a darling of the Trump administration, considered to be a big Trump supporter, and in addition to him, Megyn Kelly, and you claim that both are actually working in a new swamp against Trump, and a lot of Americans thought Tucker and Megyn were supportive. You say no.
So both Tucker Carlson and Kelly campaigned for President Trump. They openly campaigned with Trump in 2024. Tucker sat a few seats down from Trump on the first night of the RNC in Milwaukee in July of 2024. Megyn Kelly quite literally appeared at the Madison Square Garden rally in New York City for President Trump. And the whole story of these individuals and some others, but they're the two most prominent ones, I would say. It's unfortunate. Tucker was a hero to many of us. I was a daily watcher of his opening monologues. He was someone who I greatly admired, but he's lost his mind, and it's just genuinely unfortunate. There was not a single foreign adversary, not a single enemy regime or enemy way of life that I'm aware of that Tucker Carlson has not shilled for. He recently had on a Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece by the name of Xiang Shui-qian, who essentially said that the U.S. must be part of a new world order where we share power with Russia, Iran, and China.
All right, let me stop on that point. Just because he had someone like that on his program, I have people on the program that I don't agree with, but are you saying he actually had him on to make him appear more credible as opposed to attacking or defending views and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, he literally said that's the only thing that possibly makes sense for preserving the civilization. The only problem is that Israel will oppose it. Tucker does not push back on his guests. I don't know how much of the current Tucker programming you watch. He pushes back on the only guests that Tucker pushes back on are people who are pro-Jewish, pro-Israel, or pro-biblical civilization. He pushes back on Ted Cruz. He pushes back on Mike Huckabee. He pushes back on virtually no one else. He had on the leading neo-Nazi of the younger generation, Nick Fuentes, for a total fluff interview. He had on the president of Iran for a total fluff interview. He had on Vladimir Putin in Moscow for an interview that was such a fluff interview that Vladimir Putin himself was openly mocking Tucker afterwards for not asking any hard questions. Tucker usually has on total fluff interviews.
You point out in your article for Front Page that Trump is a conservative nationalist. His foreign policy is rooted in confidence and peace through strength deterrence. And yet you say Carlson, Kelly, and others are taking another road.
Yeah, the foreign policy road that they're taking is essentially just straight abdication. I don't really know how else to describe it other than that. I mean, it's basically just Charles Lindbergh, Ron Paul taken to its extreme. It's a foreign policy of non-policy. They seem to not believe that America can or should have any role whatsoever in the world. I mean, we are beyond the confines of any kind of prudent deployment foreign policy debate there. But the thing about Iran that they seem to be missing, and this I think is deliberately, I don't think that they're good faith actors here, is they are missing that President Trump has been completely consistent on the issue of Iran for nearly 50 years. There's literally a clip that I've seen circulated recently of him going on television back during the Jimmy Carter presidency, condemning Jimmy Carter for not deploying the U.S. military to rescue the hostages from the U.S. embassy in Tehran. In 1988, Trump famously told the British newspaper The Guardian that he would go ahead and take Karg Island, the strategic island that he's now talking a lot about there in the Persian Gulf. So he has a very, very long history of opposing the Iranian regime. Of course, famously pulled out of the Barack Obama nuclear deal during his first term.
Right.
And none of this should be surprising at all. Unfortunately, the propagandists just say this is Netanyahu talking into war and all this other crap that frankly does not withstand the slightest bit of scrutiny.
Well, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly fans who are listening are saying, well, Josh Hammer, you're a shill from the David Horowitz Freedom Center. You're pushing nothing but Jewish causes. You're not recognizing the value of America and what they are trying to point out.
Yeah, and guess what? The polls say that the people agree with me, not with them, because that was the whole. I mean,
oh, touche.
Yeah, again, brand new poll. GL Partners shows that the American people trust Donald Trump over Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly on foreign policy by roughly an 85-5 margin. This is not close stuff. These guys have ridden themselves quite literally off the MAGA reservation. Trump said that Tucker Carlson has lost his mind and is not MAGA. He said that Megyn Kelly has lost her sway and is no longer relevant. He's condemned these people, and ultimately, a lot of these folks are going to have to choose whether they go with a few of these dissenting, high-profile voices, whether they go with President Trump, who has changed American politics and, frankly, has changed the entire geopolitical map.
Well, again, keeping in mind they are outside the White House, but you're saying that pervades inside the White House. It still exists.
I do believe that there are a number of folks inside the administration who are acting to subvert the administration's agenda and doing so in concert with some of these actors on the outside. Again, Joe Kent was clearly doing that. He has now resigned in disgrace. Dan Caldwell was doing that, and shamefully he's now been rehired. And it's again, a lot of this takes us back seemingly to the office of the Director of National Intelligence. Really, what I wrote in my shadow work column for frontpagematic.com is I trace a lot of this back to Sergio Gore, who was the head of the White House Office of Presidential Personnel. He's since been shipped halfway around the world to be the U.S. ambassador to India, which unfortunately is a pretty important portfolio for someone with such little talent. But Sergio Gore, unfortunately, was kind of the guy who was vetoing a lot of prudential picks for national security and was ushering in a lot of crazy tinfoil hat conspiracists for important positions. So a lot of the original blame for this goes to the White House PPO office, but certainly these individuals do exist in the administration.
All right. What about White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles? She's got to be seeing this. And Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, they must be seeing it. Are they ignoring it? Are they complicit? Which is it?
They're certainly not complicit. I think that Susie and Stephen are both arch loyalists. Look, I will say this. I have not sent the column talking about individually to either of those people, but I send them to people close to those people, and I hope that they are reading and listening. I hope that Donald Trump cleans out the audience stables within his administration. I hope that happens.
And how much is this affecting what we're doing in Iran right now and going forward?
Well, right now, I don't think it's having a huge impact because President Trump is as of right now, is continuing this operation pretty much full speed ahead. The U.S. just was involved in bombing runs over Tehran last night. Pete Hegseth and Dan Kane did the joint presser at the Pentagon this morning talking about that. So for right now, at least, it doesn't seem to be having much of an impact. However, it's concerning because there's a lot of questions as to what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Okay. And look, the war obviously cannot go on forever. I mean, my personal stance is that full-scale, quote-unquote, regime change is not going to happen if we're just being realistic here. So at some point, you have to cut bait, but you can't do so prematurely either because what was the purpose of this operation in the first place unless you see the mission through? All
right. I want to thank you for your time, Josh, and giving us your input. Josh Hammer with the David Horowitz Freedom Center. And the book is Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation, The Destiny of the West, and we are all tied together. Josh, again, thank you for your time.
You bet. Thanks so much.
All right, we'll do it again. Something to consider, and especially for Tucker Carlson fans. I know there are many of still listening. Sean, same thing with Megyn Kelly. Coming up, the story behind the story. When I was going to be a Golden Gloves boxing champ.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Finally, March, the season of fresh starts, more daylight, more energy. A perfect time to take a fresh look at your home. Your windows or doors are outdated and efficient? Check with Renewal by Anderson. From your first design consultation through final installation, every detail is handled by one experienced, dedicated team. Clear communication, precise craftsmanship. Renewal by Andersen Windows, built with our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl. And right now, during our March savings event, take $400 off every window, $800 off every door, and get a free upgrade to Smart Sun Glass. No money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. But this ends March 31st. Call 877-WINDOWS, 877-WINDOWS, or visit rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Superior products, exceptional service. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
See me in the spotlight, ooh, I love your style. Show me what you got, cause I don't wanna waste my time. See me in the spotlight, ooh, I love your style. Show me what you got now, come and make it worth my while. Give it to me, I'm worth it. Baby, I'm worth it.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
We pick up the action with round 12. From the beginning, Dundee had known that Ali could outmuscle the smaller man. Note the movement here. He retained that movement throughout the fight. This was the last round, round 12, of a sweep for Ali on all scoring cards from rounds 7 through 12. Throughout the fight, after the first round, Spinks was unable to penetrate. He kept coming, but he couldn't connect. I suppose, in a sense, that was Ali's achievement last night. His ability to move and to dance at his age, when for the prior 2 to 3 years, he had shown little or nothing of such an ability. The 15th round, fight almost at its end. There it was. It was over. They fought for a couple of seconds after the sound of the bell. Ali went back to his corner. There was sheer bedlam in that ring. One took one's life in his hands to go into it. I know. I did. Watch closely the glove of Leon Spinks. Leon Spinks knew he had lost, and he had lost to his idol as he hugged Ali, who turned around. Now, the decision.
Good. On this, Kojo scores. 10 Ali, 1 even, 4 Spinks. The new champion, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, the new champion.
So there it was, and he was tired, but still ready to scream, the greatest of all time, of all time.
Of all time, winning his championship, heavyweight championship, for the 3rd time. That was his rematch with Leon Spinks that took place in Nolens, or New Orleans for some of you. 15-round unanimous decision, September 15, 1978. Leon Spinks, of course, from the St. Louis area, had defeated Ali by a 15-round split decision in 1978, Feb of that year in Las Vegas, to win the undisputed heavyweight championship in only his 8th professional fight, I should say. And Ali later won the rematch, as we said, in 1978 of September. If you recall, Ali had been banned from boxing because he refused to be inducted into the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War, citing religious beliefs as a Muslim and moral opposition to the war. He was stripped of his heavyweight title, had his boxing license revoked, but then he was back. So that in defeating Leon Spinks on that date in Nolens made him a 3-time world champ. Now, I was into boxing. I was watching it closely. My dad was. And my dad, when I was much younger, say around 8, 9, Friday night boxing is presented by Gillette on TV. But Dad would also often go out to the car to smoke his pipe and listen to the fight on the radio. And he always told me there are more punches thrown on the radio than on the video, which I think is probably true because the announcers got a little embellishment, maybe carried away. But I wanted to be part of that and make my dad proud, and maybe I got thinking, maybe I could do that at some point. And I really got hooked when Dad took me one time to a Golden Gloves event in Odessa, Texas. And I went there and watched this Golden Gloves event. Now, Golden Gloves event had started back in 1923. And there had been some famous world boxers come out of Golden Gloves. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather Jr. All of them went through the Golden Gloves ranks. It was originally scheduled for those 18 to 40, but there were some junior tournaments, ages 8 to 17. And the one we went to had some of those above 18 and some in the early teens. Well, I was convinced I could do that. I need to do that. I want to do that. So I went to get training help by the book. I mean, literally by the book. There were no videos then, and there was no one in the area that I knew that could be teaching me, so I was going to read a book, the best book I could find, Jack Dempsey, Hall of Fame boxer. His book, Fighting Techniques and Strategies, Championship Fighting, Explosive Punching, Aggressive Defense. So I read every page. I studied every picture, trying to imagine what and how to do it. He was always focusing on stance, footwork. But again, I'm having to read it in a book. I couldn't see and visualize it directly. Dempsey had at one time been ranked 6th on Ring Magazine's list of all-time heavyweights, 4th among the top 100 greatest punchers. And in 1950, the Associated Press had voted him as the greatest fighter of the past 50 years. Again, that was 1950. We're past that point now when I'm starting to think I want to be a boxer. But I studied that. And Dad got me some gloves. And Dad got a heavy punching bag and hung it in the garage. And I worked on it. I worked on that bag, and I would get up and do some running in the morning. And I would do push-ups. I was doing everything to train. And I would read and read and read and go back and read again. And position myself in the photos as I saw in the Jack Dempsey book. This is my stance. This is what I will do. But it was just me. But I was getting ready. I was going to be training. I was going to be in shape for the next Golden Gloves match when it came the following year. And I was going to enter. And I was going to win the Golden Gloves championship for my age bracket and go higher. Dreams? They weren't dreams. They were reality ahead of me. And I was going to be there. And I told my dad, and every day he'd come in and say, "Did you work on the bag today?" "Yes, sir." So I was ready. I got so ready, and I practiced so hard. And there were nights I would go to sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the morning. I think, if I'm awake, I should be running. So I'd go out and run around the block a couple of times. Till Mom said, "Don't go in and out of the house in the middle of the night. We don't know who's coming and going. Don't do that." So I'd spend my time in the bedroom doing push-ups until I'd go back to sleep. I was determined. I had grit. I was going to make it. But I had no one to really fight against yet. Dad would occasionally hold his hands up for me to hit at as he moved them around, and I'm ducking while he's swaying at me, but that wasn't real effort. So I studied harder in the book. There was just nothing else I could learn from. Jack Dempsey's championship fighting, explosive punching, aggressive defense. And he learned to do the uppercut, learned to do the jab, the hook. I learned all of it. I'm ready. I mean, I was doing shadow boxing, and I became so good at shadow boxing. I got so good at shadow boxing, I delivered a uppercut, and I knocked my shadow out. Yeah, well, on the shadow, it looked like I would have. Okay, I need to get somebody. I need to get a challenger. I'm ready for all challenges. So there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
Rising up, back on the street. Did my time, took my chances. Went the distance, now I'm back on my feet. Just a man and his will to survive. So many times it happens too fast. You trade your passion for glory. Don't lose your grip on the dreams of the past. You must fight just to keep them alive. It's deep eye of the tiger. It's the thrill of the fight. Rising up to the challenge of our rivals.
The Survivors with Eye of the Tiger. Now, that song was not around when I was learning to box. You probably might most remember it, reference boxing, from the movie Rocky. But a lot of fighters used it when they went into the ring. The Eye of the Tiger. Well, while I didn't know the song because it hadn't been created yet, but I had the will of the fighter, in my opinion. I got a neighborhood kid behind us. He was about half a year older than me, but we were in the same grade. And he stood about 4 inches taller than me. And he outweighed me by about probably 30 pounds. And I convinced him, let's get in the backyard. Let's box. Come on, let's box. He said, well, I don't know anything about boxing. I said, well, put the gloves on. I'll teach you. And you try to hit me. Well, he stood there and just kind of moved them. And I said, come on, try to hit me. Come on, try to hit me. And I don't want to do you. I might hurt you. He said, come on, try to hit me. Come on, try. Boom. As has been said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. I got punched in the mouth. He hit me straight right up under my lip. I should say under my nose, onto my lip, and right into my teeth. Chipped a tooth. Bleeding everywhere. I went in. Mom went hysterical. Mom and Dad had paid a lot of money for me to get braces on. And I'd just gotten the braces off. And whether or not they'd finish their payments, I don't know. But I'd been out of the braces for at least a month or so. And now I'm in the backyard letting a kid punch me and knock out part of my tooth. When Dad got home, she tore into him. I do not want my boy doing that anymore. Look what happened. And my friend was, I didn't mean. I said, of course, I told him, I said, go ahead, punch me. Come on, try. Well, he did. And apparently, reading the Jack Dempsey book, I didn't learn enough about ducking and staying out of danger. I just sat there with my face waiting for his glove to crash into it. I did not deliver a single counterpunch. I didn't deliver a punch one. My hands were down at my side. I didn't even try to protect myself. I thought I could move fast enough. His glove into my face taught me otherwise. So when Dad came home, Mom had already taken the gloves and thrown them in the trash. And she told Dad, take that bag down the garage. And he did, dutifully. And then he and I had a talk. I said, Larry, what were you thinking? I said, well, Dad, I thought I was ready. I've been praying. I know you've been working at it, but you got to learn more before you can just go. I can't read it from a book. Well, that's all I had. And then he gave me a piece of advice. If you're going to continue this, don't let your mama know about it. Another piece of advice. If you're going to continue this, duck. My mom, for the next few days, was absolutely angry. I had to go back to the dentist, see what kind of repair they could make about a chipped tooth and maybe some other damage I'd suffered. The Golden Gloves of America, by the way, I want to stress to you, is a great opportunity for young people. And it's been said, as we had at one time here in the St. Louis area, if the kids have gloves on, they can't hold guns. The bout's normally 3 rounds, each round about 2 minutes. They had to wear gear, depending upon regulations and their age. But the Golden Gloves was not fought by somebody who had never done anything but read a book until that day. All of my dreams of becoming a Golden Gloves boxing champ went down. Well, he didn't knock me down. I was still standing. But I was in the house, and Mom cried over my broken tooth. My friend just went home, never said anything. Mom didn't bother calling his parents because she knew that I had dared him. I dared him, and I wasn't ready for him to respond. The end of my Golden Gloves boxing career that day. Tomorrow, our story behind the story. One of the World War II's Pacific bloodiest battles, when Marines were capturing Okinawa, as on March 31. The story behind the story tomorrow. Second hour still to come. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Beal to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Finally, March, the season of fresh starts, more daylight, more energy. A perfect time to take a fresh look at your home. Your windows or doors are outdated and efficient? Check with Renewal by Andersen. From your first design consultation through final installation, every detail is handled by one experienced, dedicated team. Clear communication, precise craftsmanship. Renewal by Andersen windows built with our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl. And right now, during our March savings event, take $400 off every window, $800 off every door, and get a free upgrade to Smart Sun Glass. No money down, no payments, no interest for 12 months. But this ends March 31st. Call 877-WINDOWS, 877-WINDOWS, or visit rbastl.com. rbastl.com. Superior products, exceptional service. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. ONDER. Underlaw.com wins.
This is NewsTalk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
The president has always said that diplomacy is his number one option and priority. Again, he tried earnestly, in good faith, to engage in diplomacy with the Iranian regime prior to this operation being launched in the first place. Despite all of the public posturing you hear from the regime and false reporting, talks are continuing and going well. What we're hearing from them is more reasonable. They have agreed to some of the points the United States laid out. If the Iranians reject this golden opportunity, the greatest military in the history of the world continues to stand by to provide President Trump with every option available to ensure this regime continues to pay a grave price.
That is, of course, Carolyn Leavitt, White House spokeswoman, making it very clear what we are doing correctly and what the other nations need to be doing and what Iran should do if they want to bring an end to the conflict. President Trump had shared footage of a U.S. strike on an Iranian munitions depot overnight. And now there apparently is another 10 days for Iran to accept a peace agreement before we target their energy infrastructure, which might include desalination plants, providing water for Iran. But we're having trouble with some of our allies in the region. Getting to the point where there's no one that we can count on. One that we can count on and is still wanting our help and doing its job, Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says that already the U.S. aims have more than half have been achieved. But both refuse to put a timeline on this operation. Global markets are suffering, and you can see gas prices go up more, not just here, but across the world. But Trump is making it clear if our NATO allies are not going to step up and do what they should be doing, then they can go take care of the Strait of Hormuz by themselves. And they're not capable, and they're not willing. And the lack of willingness even to cooperate where we need the help just for landing fighters to refuel is becoming an obstacle. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, says that Trump's potential next moves have been successful and that right now for Iran, a win is Iran is going to have to try to survive. And that would be to accept the peace offers in front of it, but not likely to do so. Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan Chase CEO, is calling for a decisive end to dealing with Iran, saying the U.S. must finish this thing to protect the global economy and remove the threat. And he points this out. Hear me on this point. According to Jamie Dimon, it's much more important that this be successfully completed than what is happening with the market. In other words, expect fluctuations in the market. Be prepared to deal with it, maybe suffer a little bit, but the long-range goal is to make sure that Iran does not have nuclear capabilities. Welcome to the second hour of Larry Connors USA. Here we are, March 31, 2026. You have to bear with me. I got into a shouting earlier about some of the things I'm doing here, and I think I pushed my throat a little bit hard. But with Larry Connors USA, we promise to give you news, analysis, commentary, and education. You're going to leave this hour with more knowledge than you have right now. I have a question for you. Is your company using artificial intelligence? If not, why? And if so, how are you using it? Are you using it to the best of your ability? I've got a guest coming up later that can give you some additional background and information that will certainly help you and your company. Now, I want to point out to you, because I never try to hide this from my listeners, PRI Global Artificial Intelligence Prism Action Network is a sponsor of Larry Connors USA. And I've got their chief technology officer scheduled to talk to us later. So I'll make it clear to you, you're going to be hearing from one of my sponsors, but they are a great source when it comes to AI. And I've got some questions I think will shed more light on how AI can and should be used by you and your company. That's coming up later. Back to the situation of dealing with Iran. We have had deadlines put down by Trump, and then he will extend it as they allow more oil shipments to go through the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know if this latest report of 10 days is an actual date or not, but he is getting tired that they think they can buy time by, we'll let a few more ships through. That game is getting old. Trump does not play games. Iran wants to string it out as long as they can. We have more troops in the region, 82nd Airborne arriving, Marines ready. I'm not wanting boots on the ground inside Iran. I do not want an invasion force going into Iran. If we're going to use them to take Karg Island, the major factory distillation area for oil for Iran, 20 miles off their coast, I'm for that in a limited capacity. Now, I'm not obviously privy to all the intel, but I trust our commanders are, and the commander-in-chief, Trump, will make the right decision. He doesn't really want troops in danger either. But we've got troops all across the region of the Middle East. And the other day, Iran fired a ballistic missile hitting one of our AWAC planes, which is a surveillance aircraft parked on a Kuwaiti air base, and blew it apart and apparently seriously injured 5 U.S. troops. So they can reach out beyond what they've been doing. We cannot allow that to continue. So if they're going to step up and accept some of these deals to bring an end to the war, they're going to need to do it soon, because Trump is saying we will begin targeting your energy infrastructure, aside from going after military installations. We're already hitting steel plants and other things that contribute to what Iran's building, the missiles and so forth. And in dealing with these folks, it's hard to determine who is the leader. We keep decimating the leadership. Somebody's made an admiral, boom, we take him out. Somebody's made a new commander, boom, we take him out. And those that are left, 4-star General Jack King says they're not willing. In fact, they are afraid inside their own ranks to do any peaceful negotiations.
And the people that are in charge now are hardliners. Make no mistake about it. The guy running the IRGC, Ahmed Vahidi, and the guy running the civilian side, Gablov, those are hardliners. And they have great difficulty even admitting negotiations are going on, or much less making a concession. Why? Because the rest of the hardliners would likely kill them. That is what is taking place inside the nucleus of Iran and its leadership.
Yeah.
So diplomatic challenge going forward for sure, military challenge as well. My preference is finish it militarily, because why? At the end of the day, you have the opportunity to truly weaken the regime, and you're not throwing them a lifeline in terms of sanction relief, billions of dollars for them making concessions to us.
And because we can't trust them anyway. Now, over the weekend, Secretary of War Hegseth didn't make a covert visit to our troops fighting in Operation Fury. So he's been on the ground to see what's happening, and now back in D.C. But one of the things Trump had suggested the other day that might be in play, that we would use U.S. troops to go into Iran to seize the enriched uranium which they have. Basically, it's under layers of rubble because we pounded their facility so hard. But apparently he envisions that we could go in and retrieve the uranium. I don't think we could, and I'm not for it. I don't want U.S. troops exposed to that. But Sean Hannity asked a question of Major King.
You mentioned possibly destroying the 60% enriched uranium. Can that be destroyed? Can that be diluted? Or must it be extracted? Obviously, the easy way would be for them to agree to hand it over.
The president has options. I'm going to leave it at that. And he has got plenty of options in front of him what to do with the nuclear enrichment and the other capabilities that they have. In terms of the deal with them, I mean, so our audience understands what we're trying to achieve through diplomacy is what we intend to achieve through military operations. They would have to surrender all of the capability that they have with verification anytime, anywhere inspections. At the end of the day, I believe they're not going to do that because that is who they are.
Yeah.
And they want to ride this thing out as long as they can personally survive it. They're in this to ride it out, is my judgment here. We'll see what happens here. But the reality is we can accomplish all of the assigned missions, Sean, that the president has given to the commander of Central Command. And how do I know that? Because I've talked to him time and time again about it. And he's in the region right now talking to the troops today as we speak, and he's very confident about where we are.
King was referring to Hegseth in the theater last weekend, downrange. In the meantime, some of our NATO allies, France not allowing us to land and refuel jets, Spain doing the same thing. Now Italy. Meloni's supposed to be a great supporter of Donald Trump, but she's not doing it now. Secretary of State Rubio said all of these folks that are in the NATO alliance, we're going to have to re-examine what we're doing for them.
Countries like Spain, a NATO member that we are pledged to defend, denying us the use of their airspace and bragging about it. Well, what is in it for the United States? But if NATO is just about us defending Europe if they're attacked, but them denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement. That's a hard one to stay engaged in. So all of them's going to have to be re-examined. Straits of Hormuz will be open. It will be open, and it'll be open one way or another.
And one way or the other is, according to Trump, as he put on his Truth Social, speaking specifically to the NATO countries that are denying our use of their bases and airspace, basically saying, if you want the oil from the Strait of Hormuz, you go get it. Get your own oil. We're no longer going to be there to help you anymore. Good. Throw it back in their face. They will crack. You watch. They will crack. In the meantime, domestically, the Trump DOJ is diving into all the leftist groups in our nation, trying to divide us and tracing down their funding and their real intent to do harm to you. And, of course, that includes cheating at voting time.
President Trump is directing the Justice Department to investigate Act Blue. This is a Democratic donation platform, and the focus as the allegations about illegal straw donors and foreign contributions. Mark Meredith is live in Washington with more. This has been brewing for a while, Mark. What do we need to know?
Dana, for years, you're right about this, but this is a big development. The White House is directing the Attorney General to investigate the Democratic Party's top fundraising platform. It's called Act Blue, and the president says he wants to know if foreign money is being donated to the group and then utilized to sway elections. Democrats are calling this probe a dangerous abuse of power. Act Blue is an enormous operation in Democratic politics. It's raised more than $16 billion since 2004. You may have seen the text pop up from candidates saying, please donate, go to the Act Blue website. Republicans use something similar called Win Red. There was a new memo signed on Thursday directing the Attorney General to investigate if foreign nationals are using the Act Blue platform to bypass campaign finance laws. Trump wants a report out in 6 months.
And that's the key. You're entitled to try to raise money, but it must be properly accounted for. And you cannot have foreign money going into U.S. elections. George Soros and the rest of the Act Blue group know exactly what they're doing. They can cheat because they're willing to, and they're able to get away with it. But hopefully we'll put a stop to it as we get deeper into it. I'm talking about cheating. Part of that goes all the way back, of course, to census, because the census determines how many representatives each state has. Texas Congressman Hunt.
The Census Bureau admitted to having made several, quote, errors in their 2020 census report. Convenient, seeing that as in 2020, Donald Trump was on top of the ticket. In 2020, the Bureau undercounted in primarily deep red states such as Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas, all red, while overcounting in radical left blue states like Delaware, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Ohio, and Rhode Island. This egregious error led to many states being denied proper representation in Congress and the Electoral College. So much so that these errors cost Republicans not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 seats in the House. In addition to the 2020 miscounting, including illegal immigrants in the census has improperly granted radical left blue states 12 additional seats in the United States House of Representatives.
And it's all done by cheating, by adding in illegals to the census or detracting them from some areas. And yet we have the left in the streets, as we saw this last weekend, protesting and chanting, no kings, and yet they're the ones carrying out like a king and doing everything they can. Donald Trump's reaction.
What's your response to the protests over the weekend, the No Kings protests?
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country. And by the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
And they say he's not a king. The left will say he's not a king. And yet they want to protest no kings. The only impact they had on one listener I know, he said, I drove past one of the marching groups and they struck my car with their sign. That's about it. Coming up, how AI can help your business. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Previously, I've told you about dustless blasting, a special service offered by Wellington Environmental. It could work for you in your place. Recently, a crew removed a driveway sealer that had failed. The owner wanted to go back to the original concrete so it could be properly sealed. Dustless blasting worked. That homeowner is happy. Now, sometimes surfaces need pressure washing instead of blasting. In fact, there was an exterior stone fireplace cleansed by pressure washing, and when it dried, all the dark stain was gone. That stone had its original appearance. Wellington is versatile with blasting. Dustless blasting or whatever you need. They will evaluate and make a decision. How do you get them to your door? Very easy. Call 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Wellington Environmental, making your world great. In fact, be safe, be well with Wellington Environmental. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Don't know much about history. Don't know much biology. Don't know much about a science book. Don't know much about the French I took. But I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. PRI Global is one of my sponsors. I always want to make that clear to you. I don't try to slip a sponsor into a segment as if it's a source that is just here because they're an expert. They are an expert, but they're also a sponsor. I've known the founder, A.J. Patel, for decades now. And in fact, since 1997, PRI Global has been providing talented IT help and others. Now we're in the age of artificial intelligence. And the PRI Global provides technology and engineering, helping organizations modernize, secure, and scale everything from IT, cybersecurity to the cloud. Joining us now, the Chief Technology Officer, Cord Hicks. Cord, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And lay out for the audience again that you guys have your own in-house lab in helping develop for customers as to what they need, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So recent addition over the last year or two, we added an artificial intelligence division. And in that, we have a core product called Prism that acts as like an infrastructure tool for all things AI. And then we also take on some build projects as well.
Now, when you say takes on all things AI, nowadays that's a pretty big bucket to dive into.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we look to do is really use the AI layer to help with your operations directly. So instead of just having, a simple chat bot here, maybe something that does your emails here, really having a holistic system that can take really end to end within a business use case is what we're looking at.
Seamless, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, give me some examples, some of the businesses you're working with and what you're able to achieve through PRI Global.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the newest clients that we have is actually in the healthcare space. And what we're doing is helping deliver real-time data from the very advanced textbooks, procedure books that they use in order to guide what they're doing, especially in emergency and trauma situations. So we're very happy to be doing that now as well. And we've also expanded into the IT sector where we're looking at aggregating data, tickets, monitoring, and support in order to really create a support and control tower in an IT organization, alleviate a lot of the burden that comes from that.
Now, again, in the health field, obviously, we recognize the immediate importance of that, but you also deal with industries in other levels, other areas.
Yes, absolutely. So we also have the manufacturing space and construction space, a lot of work around being able to look at future employment, what you need to do in terms of projection for labor and cost estimates, being able to help with project scheduling and projects logistics, really all of those little nooks and crannies that are very data forward, but also really kind of tedious, time consuming to deal with.
Now, in some cases, the employees look at AI coming into their company means the end of their job. That is not necessarily true. In fact, it might not be true at all.
Yeah, I really don't think that's the case. What we are typically looking to do, and what I see a lot of AI providers in general do, is we look to empower the individual, not replace the individual. So if a given employee is spending, say, 30-40% of their time every day doing very tedious tasks, things like looking through emails, reviewing spreadsheets, doing things like this, that's where we can leverage artificial intelligence and give them back that 30-40% to do something that's going to be a lot more advanced and push the organization forward in a better way. So the ability to do more with less.
You're listening to Cord Hicks, the Chief Technology Officer with Prism at PRI Global. Now, when you're doing that, you're talking about working smarter, not harder.
That's correct. Yeah. So whenever you're able to take away a lot of these burdens that kind of arise as you grow an organization, things like having to handle reporting, having to handle compliance specifications, a lot of filling out reports, reviewing data, making database decisions. If you can really rely on artificial intelligence to do all of this data gathering, data entry, then you can focus on things that are really going to take your company to the next level and do more productive work than just doing work that maintains but doesn't really move you forward.
Now, there's a recent Quinnipiac University study, a national survey of how to shape the future technology, public policy on AI, says that the use of AI is surging. 51% of Americans now use it, up from 37%. Only 27% say they've never used it. But 70% do believe AI will reduce job opportunities. And 81% of Gen Z expects job loss from AI. Again, how do you counter that?
Yeah, so what I would say to that is very similar to when we had the Industrial Revolution, right? The big invention of industrialized manufacturing, the production of cars, etc. There were a lot of jobs that disappeared. Stable hands, for example. The need for stable hands went way down. The need for the whole economy that was around horse-based travel kind of took a nosedive. But on the other hand, you had the emergence of a new economy with new jobs and new opportunities that really didn't exist before. So I think we're going to see more of a transition to new roles and responsibilities in the workforce rather than an overall net loss.
Well, in healthcare, since you mentioned that earlier, many will accept that AI performs better, but also one survey showing 80% still prefer human oversight. We're not quite there in the minds that even on Waymo cars, turning loose of the wheel and letting the car drive. I mean, everyone gets a little hesitant. Do I turn loose and trust or not? Can you hear me? Well, we must have lost Cord. Sorry about that. Yeah, there is another survey that points out that while AI does perform better when it comes to healthcare, which is one of the things that they've been involved in, we have 81% just still want a human overseeing it. I think we understand that at this point, but at the same time, I think many Americans are getting to the point where they're going to start accepting it. It is, as he mentioned, the Industrial Revolution all over again, but on a different level. And for many that are involved in it at this point, they don't see any way around it. But again, as you heard Cord Hicks pointing out, and again, he's with PRI Global, one of my sponsors, what they're doing in the healthcare business is taking a lot of the tedious work off of healthcare providers so they can do the more specific and important work on your healthcare. Same thing for manufacturing. And if you're building something, you want to know what materials you're going to need and when, so you can schedule them in advance and get them set. In other words, on-time delivery when you need them. Cord, we lost you briefly. Glad to get you back. We're talking about the fact that a lot of Americans still just prefer human oversight, even if they're using AI.
Yes, for sure. So what we've seen is that the highest level of trust really comes from bringing the two together, right? You get the mechanical, surgical precision of a machine-driven system, something like AI, but then you get the real expertise, tacit knowledge, human-to-human connection and experience from a true expert who is utilizing the technology. So really the best of both worlds is what is going to move us forward, move the economy forward, and really what I expect to see in the future.
And you talked about in the industrial realm in addition to healthcare. What about construction? How's AI and PRISM helping construction companies?
So really the margin of a construction company is going to live or die based on the quality of their planning and logistics. So the ability to understand exactly how much work needs to be done, exactly how much material is going to be required, what the project outlook looks like, and make sure that the project always runs smoothly. And these come down to all sorts of micro decisions that typically get made by the project coordinators. You can really rely on artificial intelligence to do a lot of this logistics because it's very deterministic, very if this happens, then that happens.
Yeah.
And so by putting a lot of that lift on an artificial intelligence system, not only is the review going to be higher quality because they can spend more time on it and they weren't the original producer, but the plans that are made are typically much more accurate than even a human can achieve.
All right. Cord Hicks, Chief Technology Officer, PRI Global AI, and their system PRISM obviously could be of help to many of you listening for you and your company or the company you work for. Let them know about it. Cord, thank you again for your time today, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. PRI Global, as I said, I had relationships with the owner going back decades, and he's always been involved and deeply wanting to do what can be done to help people move ahead in their lives. AI, of course, is now not just on the horizon, but here. I remember Several years ago, we're talking about it coming. It's here. And PRI Global has their own lab in-house to work with companies. Maybe it would be wise for you to check with them directly. PRI Global. PRI Global AI, again, a sponsor of Larry Connors USA. Never want to hide that information. Coming up, what the Democrats are trying to do when it comes to the Department of Health and Safety.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice you have Under Law on your side. A St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
There's 1,000 miles in 18 hours. I got a double drive down southbound 35. I got the hammer down, Detroit made 525, pushing my ass right down that line. And that smell of burning diesel fuel just tells me that I'm back out on the road.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
We have to understand it is Democrats. It's not Republicans that are refusing to fund DHS. It's Democrats. And you take a look at their record of opening up our border, flooding this country with sex traffickers, human traffickers, potential terrorists, Iranian sleeper cells. We need to fund these agencies, but the Democrats can do this. They can be so obnoxious, so obstructionist, because they are aided and abetted by the mainstream media who will never hold them accountable. So that's the reality we all face. Every Republican, both the Senate and the House, want to fully fund DHS, keep this America safe. It is Democrats who do not want to do that.
Yep, he's absolutely right. Senator Ron Johnson, the Republican, saying the Democrats don't want to do what's necessary to keep our nation safe. You cannot argue against that. They're the ones who are all for open border. Come on in, anyone and everyone, unvetted. Do you think that made our nation any safer? Of course not. And, of course, their fight against ICE is just trying to find a villain that they can rally a cause to put a stop to. And they want to make sure ICE is reformulated, regulated in the way they want, as opposed to what might be beneficial for the nation. And they're holding everything else up the best they can. By executive order the other day, Trump went ahead and said TSA agents will be paid. And they are. I'm reminding of a comedian I saw the other day on one of the YouTube channels said, here's what we need to do about ICE. They're out there shouting, ICE, ICE, ICE. He said, maybe we just need to rename the organization, make it the National Immigration Customs Enforcement. So it won't be ICE, it will be NICE. You think that would back them down? No. Senate Republicans, according to The Hill, are working on a budget reconciliation package that could pass without any Democrat support and would fund the Department of Homeland Security for the next 3 years. I say do that. Do it now before we get to the midterm elections and maybe lose what control we have, because there are enough idiots out there that think the country's got to be whipsawed again by the left. Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota, Republican with the Senate Appropriations Committee, told reporters, we are working with reconciliation. We're going to send the House a bill that will actually fund DHS for the next 3 years. We're not going through this again with the Dems. We're taking this off the table. Enough with the Democrats. And I say amen, amen to that. Then I'm looking at another piece that's been put forward that we're looking at a shutdown of our Homeland Security. Now the history at 45 days, 46 days today, and it could stretch on because last week the House Republicans did reject a Senate-passed resolution. But the employees are getting back pay, at least partial at this point, by the order of President Trump. And if you look at the airport lines as they're being reported around the nation, they're much shorter. Things are moving much better. You have to keep in mind, it's not just the inconvenience for American travelers. It's the threat to our security. If these TSA agents are overworked because so many have left the job, they're overworked because so many have to spend extra hours on duty, there could be something missed. Do you want to be on that flight? Again, I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm just saying, look at the reality of what could happen. And you don't see the Democrats fighting to keep TSA agents. They could care less because they want to argue ICE, ICE, ICE. There's another piece, this time from Politico, which says Washington is locked in a high-stakes game of chicken with the Department of Homeland Security, raising the possibility that thousands of federal workers could go unpaid for several more weeks. Now, that was written just this morning, pointing out the shutdown is already the longest ever experienced by any part of our government. And in recent days, political sparring has gone from being a mostly partisan showdown into a messy internal battle for the GOP. Yeah, there's some members inside the GOP that want to bow down. One TSA official said folks are thinking this could go into the summer, adding morale is low. TSA is getting paid while the rest of us in the Department of Homeland Security are not being paid as we should. So, yeah, there's still money that needs to be spread around to help. White House Press Secretary Leavitt defending Trump's decision to step in and fund the TSA paychecks, a move that many Republicans privately encouraged, saying the president has to do what is right to end this crisis we've had at air travel and airports across the country. So we're getting the screeners TSA paid. But right now, 50,000 airport security officers are being paid under Trump's executive action, but thousands more remain furloughed or working without pay. Now, this includes 2,000 employees in our federal cybersecurity agency, more than 4,000 FEMA workers, 1,000 Coast Guard civilians. It's all part of Department of Homeland Security. And the Dems just want to continue to hold out. Well, as I speak, NASA is underway with a countdown for our first launch to the moon in 53 years. There's a 32-story space launch system rocket right now ready to go. It's supposed to lift off tomorrow evening. We'll make that around 5:30 Central Time. They've got about a 6-day window to make the launch, depending on the weather. It was supposed to take off back a couple of months ago, back in Feb, actually. But they found hydrogen fuel leaks. The leaks have been fixed, but then they had a helium pressurization line clogged. Now, Artemis is basically going to be a 10-day flight out around the moon, deepest into space we've ever been, and then a splashdown in the Pacific. The pilot said over the weekend he wants young people to see this and think and realize we have a crew that includes a woman, a person of color also, and a non-U.S. citizen. It's not a DEI project, but these folks are qualified or they wouldn't be going. The non-U.S. citizen is a Canadian. But the pilot said, girl power, that should be awesome to them. And young brown and boys look at me, himself, being Latino, and say, look, he looks like me, and he's doing that. Or he's not, but one of the others. Glover is black, and he says, we need to talk about, we're going to reach a day where they're no longer going to be first. We're simply going to be doing it because that's who we are. And I remind you again, they're not doing it simply for DEI positioning. Launch is scheduled tomorrow, about 5:25, 5:30 Central Time. That could change, but if it happens tomorrow, it'll be during the Tim Smith and Chris Arp's program. They'll be carrying it live for you. Make note of this, a win for those who want to prevent abortions. The Democrat governor of Kansas, Laura Kelly, voted to protect pro-life, or rather against pro-life pregnancy centers. She did not want to have any protection for pro-life pregnancy centers. That was the decision of the governor. Well, the Kansas House voted 87-35, and the Kansas Senate voted 30-9 to overrule her rejection. As the Republican Senate president said, the bill simply protects pregnancy resource centers' ability to educate mothers and provide life-affirming care. But the governor was saying, oh, we shouldn't be doing anything with tax dollars on this. This is very personal, very private. That's why I'm vetoing it. So you have no problem with federal dollars going to an abortion or for transitioning kids. But if it's going to be saving lives and helping young mothers, suddenly you're concerned. I've had a commentary running today about one thing we know about the leftists. They are great hypocrites. There's another perfect example. Speaking of hypocrites, New York City socialist communist mayor Mondami, he's doing it again. Yes, he's doing it again. He is promoting free child health care. But of course, free? He doesn't say how the city can offer this freebie.
Now, we are here, even though it is very quiet. I would just like to remind everyone that it is an active construction site, and it is a site that we are building for the few New Yorkers who can be louder than an active site, which is New York's cutest. And this fall, it is a center that will be transformed into New York City's first ever on-site childcare program for municipal employees. This is a site that will be 100% free with the childcare that it provides. It'll provide full daycare from children as young as 6 weeks to as old as 3 years old. And on April 30th, these applications will open for every single worker in the David Dinkins building, as well as every single DCAS employee, regardless of their location across the city.
So they're going to have all this free child care for some of the city workers. How are they going to pay for it? Don't ask such a question. This is a socialist communist approach. We're just going to provide it. The money will follow. And it will follow in the sense that more taxes for the citizens and on business. And they want to know and cannot understand why we continue to lose citizens in New York City and the state. How much more do people want to be punished? They are going to, again, do what they can to take money from the common people and spread it around and probably open up doors to more fraud and greed. We know that. That's just common. And while he offers this freebie, take note of what I'm going to share with you right now. Are you listening? Are you listening? The New York City job growth has stalled for 6 years. And yet they've had many welfare workers being hired to support the needy migrants coming in, make that illegals for the most part. The New York Comptroller compiled this list looking at unemployment and employment numbers from August 2024 to August of the following year. And in every category of employment, they were either flat or at a loss. The only industry showing wide growth, the health and social assistance sector, basically putting old people, putting their relatives on Medicaid's payroll. City of Chicago going through the same thing. And they want to blame Trump. It's them and their socialist attitude. Take note of this. I wonder how many Democrats will throw a fit the next time they fly into Palm Beach International Airport in Florida. And they find out that you're not landing at Palm Beach International. You are landing at President Donald J. Trump International Airport. Oh, there's going to be a wailing and a crying. I go into Palm Beach from time to time. I've got a daughter that lives near there. Well, Florida Governor DeSantis signed the bill yesterday approving the name change of the Palm Beach International Airport to President Donald J. Trump International Airport. It takes place in July, rebranding the West Palm Beach facility, which is, of course, near Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The House in Florida voting 81-30 along party lines. The Senate in Florida 25-11, again, party lines. Now, the change is subject to approval by the FAA, but that's going to happen. But for Democrats, when they land and the pilot announces, "Welcome to President Donald J. Trump International Airport," oh, they're going to be upset. I'm not going to lose any sleep on it. Are you? Not likely at all. Reminding you our story behind the story tomorrow. Marines taking Okinawa on that date. Thanks again for listening. Remember our pledge. One nation under God.